Mr. Catlin, would you, President Chandler Henry is absent today. Running the meeting for us will be Vice President Mark Catlin. Mr. Catlin, would you like a roll call of your directors?
Certainly.
Alden Vandenbrink.
Present.
Doug Munger.
Here.
John Ely.
Here.
Kathleen Curry.
Here.
Kathy Chandler Henry. Mark Catlin.
Here.
Mark Rober.
Here.
Martha Whitmore.
Here.
Mike Richard.
Here.
Reeve Hazard.
Here.
Scott McGinnis.
Here.
Dan Winery. Steve Beckley. Taylor Haas. Tom Gray.
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair, you do have a quorum. And I think the first item on the agenda would be a budget hearing and approval of the 2024 budget. I think you would need to open the public hearing, have our chief accountant and director of financial, I'm going to screw up his title. We're going to have Ian Phillips present to you, and then open it for public comment if there is any. At the present moment, we don't actually see anybody from the public on our meeting, but public comment, and then close the public hearing and take under consideration any motions that may be propagated by the board. So,
Well, thank you, Mr. Blazer. I'm getting a little nervous here. I'd like to open this meeting on the budget, and I'd open it to the public hearing on the budget for the Colorado River District with Mr. Ian Phillips.
All right, well, thank you, Director Catlin, Vice President Catlin. Good afternoon, directors, and any public that might be on board and staff. I wanted to start out today just to remind the board and any public that we had a budget workshop where this was held in September in Grand Junction. We discussed the 2024 tax revenue scenarios and the 2024 proposed expenses in detail. I wanted to throw a big shout out, a big thanks to Audrey and Andy and the rest of the team for stepping in for me while I was out in surgery that day. So thanks a lot for running that show for me. So today we're asking you to adopt a 2024 budget using the preliminary valuations, which were prior to the changes within Senate Bill 23B-001. That was the result of the special session held by Governor Polis in mid to late November. So I've looked at these changes within this Senate Bill 23B-001, and I'm projecting about a $400,000 decrease to our revenue. The changes within that are two significant ones. The residential assessment rate was lowered from 6.765 to 6.7, pretty small change there. And the residential exclusion for actual value was increased to 55,000 from 15,000. Those are the two big changes that are resulting in approximately $400,000 in less revenue, less tax revenue. Now, given our situation where our mill has been debruced, the board has the ability to temporarily reduce our mill if so desired. Currently, we're proposing our mill at 0.5 mils to prioritize strategic projects that we have identified. So in order to still present a balanced budget, we would be reducing the additional transfer to the CFP fund. That currently is presented to be 4.1 million, and we're anticipating that that would drop to 3.7. And that would be handled through our 2024 budget amendment process in the fall of 2024. So at that point, I'm happy to go into any of the changes made since the workshop. There were just a handful of them. The most significant one being dropping our project contributions revenue by 430,000. This is contained within the other income line item on the summary there. And with that drop in revenue, we'd also be dropping the expenditures by 430,000 due to this ASO federal monies that we were hoping to receive, but that are not going to be coming our way. So at that point, I'd like to open it up to any questions or comments from the board and or public.
Let's see.
Yes.
Mark, you're muted, unfortunately.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple of things. One, I've seen that we've gotten 2 letters out of lots of constituents. At any rate, I think it would be very helpful, Ian, if you could calculate if we did not reduce the budget or we did not lower the mill levy, what the difference would be per 100,000. So when we get a constituent that writes us, we can say, all right, here's what you're talking about. And as you can tell, those letters are very similar. So we're probably going to get a lot of, well, I'm not sure we're going to get a lot, but we're going to get a lot of form letters, I think. And I think it's helpful to show that the amount of money that we're talking about is, and I'm not downplaying it, but the amount's going to, I think, is going to be similar to a cup of coffee or something. And I think that would be helpful to have that. Second of all, I guess for Andy. So Andy, so our projects, we're going to reduce we're going to take the hit in the projects. Is that correct? If
That's correct, Director McGinnis. I think previously I discussed with the board, the intention is to put in over and above the 4.2 million annual allotment to the CFP, any additional funds that the district has above and beyond its operating expenses into the CFP. So what Ian is predicting, and I just want to say, it's a prediction at the moment because our 15 counties have not certified their assessed valuations under the new special session law. So they haven't had a chance yet to certify that mill or that valuation. But our best estimate is that we're looking at 3.7 million in an additional transfer to the CFP, which roughly would mean that we're looking at a transfer for under this budget, both the original and additional, at $7.9 million going into our projects fund in order to fund our strategic projects through the CFP and all of the restrictions and constraints that are contained within that program.
okay, and then, and I'm just a little confused here. So if we do that, then we would effectively lower the mill levy, or we keep the mill levy the same. We're just 400 and some thousand bucks short of what we had budgeted.
Right. What we're doing is we're recommending to the board under this proposed budget that you keep the mill levy at the authorized mill of 0.5 mils. We are, however, because of the special session law that was enacted by Vice Chair's colleagues at the General Assembly, I don't mean to throw shade at you there, Mr. Callen, but they are your colleagues. They enacted the bill that was enacted. It results in about a $400,000 decrease than what we had anticipated back in the September-October timeframe. So if you recall, what happened since that time is HH was defeated. Governor Polis called a special session. Their bill at the legislature that went through on a partisan basis reduced the valuation for residential assessment valuations, all of them were reduced by $55,000 for each property. And then the actual residential assessment ratio was reduced from 6.75 to 6.7. And that reduction is what is resulting, those two reductions are what we are anticipating will result in an approximately $400,000 decrease in our general fund revenue for the year 2024. And we don't have the exact numbers because we would actually have to wait till January 3rd to get those in from the counties and then hold a very immediate special session meeting for ourselves. We thought it was better to keep this meeting on the books, get this approved, and to the extent we have to adjust or amend the budget, we can do that through our normal course of budgeting process, which we normally deal with an amendment to the budget in October timeframe at our October regular meeting.
So I get, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your patience, but one final question. So Andy, if the CFP, based on previous conversations, the CFP, we can still take, we have a lot of flexibility with the CFP in assisting us with our Shoshone project, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so yeah, I guess that answers it. I don't have any problem taking out the CFP. I would have a problem if we were taking out the general fund because of the Shoshone overhead costs that we're going to incur, especially in the next year or so. So I'm being pretty protective about those funds, but that would conclude my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I can,
Go ahead.
I can respond to Director McGinnis's initial question. Director McGinnis, that would be per $100,000 of value at our mill would result in a tax liability of $3.35.
So if I might, Mr. Chair,
Certainly go.
I think that's going to be very helpful if we can start getting some more of these letters or form. I think some kind of comparison deal with your PR staff there, Andy or Peter, but you know, just some comparison to, hey, look, we've got the biggest project in the history of this river district coming up, and this is as a result of that, it's not a $500,000 that's going to hit every person. Here's about what it's going to cost you per 100,000, and it's pretty effective comparing it to a Starbucks, which even if you had a $500,000 home, you couldn't buy 2 Starbucks the way they're priced today. So I think we should prepare for more letters, which are reasonable and fair, but we should be able to you know, kind of defend it or go on the offense and say, here's what it is. Here's what it's going to cost you. Okay, thank you.
Director McGinnis, I think that's an excellent suggestion. We will put that together. I think it's the relative increase, and I want to tell the board that we have met with 3 counties who invited us to discuss our mill levies and potential for reducing them after conversations about our priority projects. All 3 understood why staff was recommending to the board that we not reduce our mill levy, and none of them argued for the reduction of our mill levy, even after having discussed it with them. And then 2, I would say, in addition to the, while it is definitely an impact because it is a tax on private property, it is a relatively minimal impact compared to other taxing districts. I would also say that our polling last year from our voters indicates extremely strong support for it, for taxes money being used for these projects that we are focusing on through our CFP. And I think it's really a critical issue to identify that there was even, like, I want to say it was in the above 80% support for additional taxing authority for the district to secure water security for the West Slope. So I believe what we're recommending to this board is very consistent with the will of our voters. It is very consistent with the expression back in 2020 when we went to the voters, and it's consistent with the polling that we've done as recently as last year. So I just put that out there for the board to consider. We can prepare a response for any of the letters that we receive at the direction of the board, and we can send it in out as a response if that's the board's desire.
Scott? you got
Well,
another-
finally, I'm responding what Andy says. That's very helpful information, but I do want us to be prepared that the CFP money is money that we can access, and we're going to have to access it, in my opinion, which means reduce money for some of these other projects on our Shoshone. So I want to make sure we're prepared to address people say, wait a minute, this is for projects other than Shoshone. No, Shoshone fits within this project. And if we have to tighten the belt on what we're doing to help other projects, we'll do it fairly, but look, this is a big deal on the Shoshone, and it fits within that project definition. I don't want us to be gun shy, especially if we put money back into the CFP, gun shy about saying we need some of those funds to help us on the Shoshone. Am I wrong on that?
No, and in fact, we haven't talked about this yet, but the funding this district's potential contribution to Shoshone, you will see that the staff will be recommending at the appropriate time that our participation in that be funded out of the CFP, at least largely out of the CFP. And that has there's a lot of reasons for that, keeping geographic equity and our bucket, our water type of contribution, or type of expenditures all balanced is really key. And I think that CFP allows us to do that. It allows us to track that. I don't believe that the expenditures that we will be recommending related to Shoshone through the CFP will cause us to deprioritize the other basins in the district. I think that we will be able to maintain that geographic equity over time. And I think it's really critical for the board to understand that it is a priority. It would be our largest single CFP, but it would be one that the flagship in many respects as to why we passed ballot question 7A to begin with. So I just want to, we're doing what we said we would do, and we will maintain the principles behind the CFP if the board is so inclined.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions that would like to come from the board or from the public? Seeing none, I guess what we'll do is move on. Andy?
I did just want to mention to the board that I did notice this meeting in about a dozen local papers, and you saw the 2 comments that we received from the budget.
All right, with that, I would just suggest the chair close the public hearing and open the floor up for motions that are laid out in the agenda if the board would like to tackle those motions.
All right, I'll move to close the public portion of this hearing. And all those in favor? Good. Do we need a vote?
I don't believe you need to vote. As the chair, you have the prerogative to close the public hearing.
Okay. Then I'm closing the public portion of this budget hearing.
And then do we have a board member desiring to make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2024 general fund budget?
So moved.
Marty Whitmore,
Second,
Second.
Richard.
second. There you go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Yeah. And then if we could have a motion, entertain a motion for a resolution to adopt the 2024 capital projects fund budget.
So moved.
Second.
Marty Whitmore, second by Mark Grover. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
If we could entertain a motion for a resolution to adopt the 2024 Community Funding Partnership Fund budget.
So, second,
Alden Vandenbrink moved and Marty Whitmore second. Can you see that from where you are? Who
Yes.
motions and seconds?
We can.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
If we could next entertain a motion for a resolution to adopt the 2024 Enterprise Fund budget.
so moved.
Marty Whitmore,
Vandenbrink.
Vandenbrink second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
And if we could entertain a motion for a resolution to appropriate sums of money, general fund, capital projects fund, and the community fund partnership fund.
Could I ask you to repeat that again, Andy?
Yes, a resolution to appropriate sums of money for the general fund, capital projects fund, and the community funding partnership fund.
So moved?
Second,
Alden Vandenbrink and Marty Whitmore second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
And if we could entertain a motion for a resolution to appropriate sums of money for the enterprise fund.
So moved,
Sure.
Richard.
Second. Mark Grover second. All those in favor, say aye.
aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Excellent. That would take care of agenda item number 1. Agenda item number 2 is review and acceptance of treasurer's reports, check registers, and draft financial statements from May through September of 2023. You'll recall we had a little bit of a glitch at our treasurer's office getting these approved in a more timely fashion. He is doing his best to catch up and will stay on top of it. He assured us in the future. But this is these are in your packet. Those treasurer reports, check registers, and draft financial statements. If there are questions, Ian Phillips would be happy to handle them. If not, we would look for a motion to accept those.
Hazard, motion to approve?
Second, Whitmore.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes.
Item number 3 on the agenda is the general manager's update, and there is no update from the general manager. We would move to the next to the general counsel's report. General Counsel Fleming.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Vice President Catlin. I would recommend make a recommendation to the board that it convene into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402 paren 4 B and E to discuss the items listed on your agenda tab 4A.
So moved.
Second. Who seconded?
Rover.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. We'll be in executive session.
Thank you. And I would state for the record that the substance of the communications in executive session will, at least this portion of executive session will constitute attorney-client communications for which no recording, no further recording needs to be made. So we'll see if there's any members of the public that need to be excluded. I don't see any, but I'll let others take a look as well. And wait for the recording to be stopped.
All I need to do is,
So I believe that we are now out of executive session from the discussion of Agenda Tab A. During that discussion, the board has discussed with council the items listed on Agenda Tab 4A. I don't believe there was any formal action proposed on any of those items or those two items. Given the short time and the time that we've already taken of the board's time today, there is two more items or one more item for discussion, and that is personnel review for the general counsel and general manager. And if the board would like, I could make a recommendation that the board convene into executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-24 paren 4F to discuss personnel matters though listed on agenda tab 6.
So moved.
Seconded.
second, Kathleen Curry. All those in favor of going back into executive session for personnel issues signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed?
So you're in
Motion passed.
executive session now. The recording will continue because Andy and I will and the staff will hop off. Audrey, I think stick with you initially, at least, if not for the duration. And Andy and I can pop back on at your desire.